What is going on, YouTube? Fascinating graveyard. Today we are in White Plains, North Carolina. And I'm here to visit the graves of Cheng and Eng Bunker. These gentlemen right here, very famous in pop culture and folklore. They are, I guess you would call them back then, Siamese twins. Now we know them as conjoined twins. The term Siamese twins actually came from them because they were born in Siam, which is now Thailand, on May 11th, 1811. Other than them being conjoined, they had pretty normal childhoods. Long story short, on their story about how they came to be over here in the United States is, well, a carnival promoter basically bought them. He went up to the parents and he said, hey, listen, I could provide them a better environment in the United States. They'll make pretty good money. And so their parents basically just sold them. And they came here to the United States when they were 17 years old. And they worked for about 4 years. I believe they had a 4-year contract. They weren't making the money they thought they were going to be making. So eventually they split off away from them and they went out and toured on their own. As you can see, their farm and grave is 100 yards here. Very interesting. Oh, nearby farm. We'll get to that story in a minute. So when they turned 21, they would perform around the United States, and they were, of course, a very big hit, and they made pretty good money. So what do you do when you're a quote-unquote sideshow, a freak show, whatever you want to call it? Nowadays, it's mean to say anything in terms of like quote-unquote freak show, but that's what it was called back in those days. So people would pay like 25 cents, and they would watch them play checkers, play chess, dance, wear costumes. This one is actually pretty amazing. They were able to do backflips together in unison. So how they were conjoined was there was about a 4-inch piece of flesh, almost like the size of an arm, that they were conjoined to. Now, of course, you would think, like, you know, back in those days, would they even attempt to, you know, separate them? And however, with modern technology, what it was back then, they were unable to do so without risking them basically dying. But even though they were born in that way, they made it work for them. They made a bunch of money. They made so much money, they were able to retire about 10 years later. They retired here to the White Plains area, Mount Airy, North Carolina. They bought a farm. They bought some slaves. Yeah, they were slave owners, right? They weren't known to be very nice to their slaves, by the way. Here is an amazing fact about them. They had together 21 children. Yes, that's right, guys. Cheng and Eng. It was more like Chang and Bang. Yeah. Cheng had 10 kids and Eng had 11, and they took the surname Bunker, so they were Chang and Eng Bunker, and they married the Yates sisters. I guess they thought they were cute or something, but you know, I guess if you're a Siamese twin, I guess anybody could be attractive, right? So anyways, so this is how they would do. First of all, let's just get the uncomfortable subject out in the open. How did these guys have sex? I don't know. Obviously, you know, I don't know. Are they having foursomes? I really don't. I don't know. I don't. There is no records of how they did that. The only thing I could find about them was that they had their separate houses, right? Because they were married. So they had their separate houses, and they would take turns going to each other's houses and being with each other's, or being with their wives, so to speak. So I believe Chang was married to Sarah Yates, and Eng was married to Adelaide Yates. So 3 days, they go to Chang's house. 3 days, they go to Eng's house. Chang was known of being more abrasive, more grumpy. Eng was more kind of moderate, more quiet, not really boisterous or very loud. Fun fact about this, when they retired, they were farmers. Of course, again, like I said, they had slaves. They farmed chickens. They had chickens, pigs, cows, sheep, all that stuff. And they farmed potatoes, corn, wheat, rye. They didn't farm tobacco. So it is believed that their farming was only to sustain them and their children because, 21 mouths to feed, quite a lot of mouths. But I do believe a couple of their children died at very young ages. And in this area of North Carolina, you will see some people that have kind of exotic, you would almost think they have Native American features. They're descendants of Chang and Eng Bunker. They have about 1,500 descendants in this area of North Carolina. So what do you like to do for fun other than having 21 kids when you're Chang and Eng? They like to go hunting. They like to go fishing. They were big on drinking. As a matter of fact, Chang was really big onto drinking. And eventually they started running low on money. So they went back on tour in 1849, made a couple bucks, went back to the farm, came back out. Now, contrary to popular belief, they did not work for P.T. Barnum and Bailey when they first came to the United States. They didn't work for P.T. Barnum until years later after they arrived. And by the time they lived in this area, because when they first moved to the United States when they were 17, they spoke no English. But as they were on the ship on the way over here, I guess they picked up English fairly quickly. And by the time they were living in this area, they spoke fluent English. So let's talk about how the death part of them goes. So they died on January 17th, 1874. Chang was the type of person that I guess you would say he abused alcohol, and he didn't really take care of himself. So he was sick quite a bit of times when Eng was healthy, which you would think they would both be sick, but no. And on the morning of January 17th, 1874, I believe Eng's son went to wake up the twins and noticed that Chang was dead. But Eng was still alive. He was sleeping. So she shakes Eng and he said, "Hey, Uncle Chang is dead." And when he looked up and he seen that his brother that he's been attached to all his life is dead, then I believe he says something along the lines of, "Well, I guess I'm going to go too." And he died a couple hours later. During an autopsy, it was discovered that 4-inch piece of flesh that conjoined them, in that flesh, their liver was fused together. So if there was any attempt to cut them, in the early 1830s or 1840s, they would have surely died. This is their grave. Eng and Cheng Bunker, along with their wives. And Adelaide Yates, the wife of Chang, she lived to be 93. That's quite amazing. All right, guys. Just an amazing story. Hope that I got over the facts as quickly as I could. I'll catch up with you guys later. Peace out.